When you surrender, life will give you things that you could have never imagined. About 3 months ago, I had just moved to an apartment in Little Italy, and I love that area. It just makes me feel like I'm in Italy, and it's fun. And I love walkability. I love walking everywhere. And the apartment flooded massively. And then I thought I just moved about 6 months prior, and I liked the apartment a lot. It had great windows, it was a great location. And I thought to myself, so again, this is me not resisting the change. Okay, maybe it's going to be okay. Then it flooded again, and they weren't going to, they weren't taking up the floors, they weren't taking up the rugs in the hallway. And I said, I'm an ENT. I know what's happening here. Mold. No, thank you. I made the decision to leave. Well, serendipitously, the woman who leased me my other apartment had moved to a different apartment building, and I was thinking maybe I'll move to LA. I don't know, maybe that'll be interesting. I just didn't know what to do. So I'd literally come from dinner with a good friend of mine, and I was telling him, I said, I think I may just move to LA. He says, I don't want you to move to LA, but if you want to move to LA, I'll help you go look for an apartment. I said, okay, yeah, let's plan something. Maybe let's do that. She texted me that night because we were friendly, and she said, how are you? And she said, I heard about the drama. She said, why don't you come look at this building? I go look at the building. I get out of my lease. I always wanted to I wanted a view of the water. I mean, one day I'm going to have that. I don't know. I now have a view of the harbor, the ocean, the mountains, the city, and it was better than I could have imagined because in my mind, I'm just thinking I'd like to see the water. But now I see the water and so much more. So I think because of that, I started to realize, wait, this is what he was talking about in the surrender experiment. Something you never imagined came to you so easily just because I didn't resist.
Welcome back to the Recalibrated Vision podcast, where we are inspiring visionaries to transform from career to calling. I'm so excited to talk with Dr. Sundar today. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You are.
Okay, beautiful. It's really interesting. Obviously, a lot of the connections that I've made personally for the podcast has been through LinkedIn. And I received a message from Dr. Sundar, and that was a little different than the messages that I'm used to receiving in regards to kind of, events and different things going on. And I took a look at the event, and it was really kind of like a membership platform or some type of training that really focused on vitality, impact. It was almost like human by design. And I thought that was really different from what I see other physicians doing in the marketplace. So I'm really excited to kind of dive into your journey from career to calling and really touch on how you are helping people really define the impact they're looking to make moving forward. So first and foremost, I know we kind of did a little debrief, but talk to me about your career into medicine and ultimately what made you decide to leave.
Okay, well, that's definitely a loaded question, but
Yeah.
my decision to go into medicine really just came from as a young child. I just wanted to help people, and I am Indian. Both of my parents are Indian, so now you have more choices. But back then, it was you could be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Now you can actually do IT too. So
Oh,
you
okay.
got more choices
Yeah.
now. But back then, we only had three. So
hmm
I have to be honest, as I thought about it and as I wrote my first book, I realized I don't know that I ever really wanted to be a doctor. I don't know. I mean, I wanted to help people, but that didn't necessarily translate into I want to be a doctor. But that
hmm
came because honestly, I wanted to please my parents. I wrote about it in my book. I wrote about how good it made me feel to have my father, who never really paid much attention to me unless I was achieving, getting good grades, telling him I wanted to be a doctor. And then all of a sudden he lit up and I said, oh, so it's like Pavlov's dog,
Right.
And I said, okay. And then one day I said, I'm going to be a cardiovascular surgeon. I think I was in the fourth grade. I just learned to say all that. And his eyes lit up even bigger. And I was like, okay, well, that's even better than just being a doctor. So I didn't wind up becoming a CT surgeon, but I did wind up being an ENT surgeon. So now my parents could say, my daughter is a surgeon. But I loved it. I can't say that I really regret it. I loved a lot of aspects of it, but there were aspects of it that I did not love. And because of that, after 20 something years, I made a very difficult decision to leave, but it was the absolute best decision of my life.
hmm That's really interesting, and you can share as much as you like and when and as much as you're comfortable with when it really comes to what you enjoyed about being an ENT surgeon and what you didn't enjoy. I actually watched a YouTube video of I believe he's a back surgeon, and he was talking about leaving medicine. And one of the pivotal moments for him was that he was having to perform surgery on people that didn't necessarily need it simply because of the hospital's pressure on him. So, what were some of the elements that you enjoyed about being a surgeon, and what was some of the moral injury that we talked about in the beginning?
Yeah, so I absolutely loved surgery because when there was a problem, you could actually go in and fix it. So there's a real pleasure in that when people were better. But as surgery evolved, I mean, I started my practice in 2003, so this is a long time ago. And as, technology evolved, there were less invasive procedures available. And I have to tell you, the first thing that sticks in my mind is it was a company called Acclarent who came up with something called the balloon sinuplasty back in, oh, I don't even know, I want to say it was 2017, 16, something like that. I was an early adopter of that technology because I thought to myself, if we had a minimally invasive tool to go in there and open the sinus without scraping, cutting, and doing all these things, if we leave the mucosa intact, what a great thing. So I started using that, and we got a lot of, kickbacks from the insurance companies, from other physicians, because it wasn't peer reviewed as much as they would have liked, etc. But I have to tell you, I was getting fabulous results. Patients who had even had sinus surgery, conventional sinus surgery, and had a recurrence of disease, we're getting improvement. Obviously, these are certain conditions that apply and certain ones that don't. So, for our practical purposes, I was seeing a lot of improvement. But again, society, our medical system wants us to do things that probably aren't the best for people. As I evolved in my career, I saw that there was really a role for better wellness, better preventative care, better, vitality, less invasive, antibiotics. So they used to also make us put patients on 3 to 4 weeks of antibiotics before getting a CT scan. Many times they had polyps. Well, antibiotics are not, but they wouldn't let me get the CT scan, the insurance companies. And I would have to do
Hmm.
that. And it was just gut wrenching at some point to
Mhm.
put people through these measures that you knew would destroy their gut or something else. There was always a side effect.
Right.
Anyway, so it was one moral injury after another, after another, after another, and I couldn't do it anymore.
Right. Yeah. And like it's so interesting. So as an outsider looking in, it's like, the physician is the authority, right? It should be the authority in these situations. And I'm sure that there's a lot of pushback from physicians initially. At what point does it become, kind of cumbersome to where you feel like you're not even making the decisions anymore, like the hospital or the practice is making it for you?
Well, I was in my own practice, so at least I could make
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
of my own decisions, thank goodness, because at
Yeah.
least I wasn't owned by a hospital where
Or insurance. Yeah.
you're right, many physicians' practices are owned by the hospital, so I didn't have that situation. But when we had to talk to the insurance companies, and I would have to talk to a podiatrist about explaining my surgery to them, I was like, "What in the world?" Or a family practitioner. I mean, no disrespect, but
Yeah.
how does it I mean, I don't wanna be the one called to give an opinion on anything internal medicine or anything I don't know about, and
Right.
that's what would regularly happen. I'd have to take time out of my day, explain this procedure, hope for an approval. It just the hoops, the difficulty, the surgeries that I did and didn't get paid for, the patients that needed some sort of care that the insurance company wouldn't cover. It got to be an emotional burden, honestly, and some of us maybe can handle it better than others, but I'm apparently a more deeply emotional person than I realized. I had a lot of
Uh-huh.
armor up for many years, and then the little by little, that armor started to drop, and it just affected me, and I couldn't just do it as a job. I mean, I was dealing with people that I knew. Most of the people I knew, I'd known for decades.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I know that, making a decision to leave medicine is huge, not to minimize anybody else's experience in leaving their career or choosing another role. But this is something that, like you said, from, a little girl, this is something that you aspire to do and obtain. It's not an easy feat. You're a surgeon at that, and you're finally in a position where you're considering leaving medicine. Kind of walk me through that process. I know there's not one specific thing, it's kind of a buildup, but walk me through kind of some of the things you were thinking about and what initially you thought you were gonna do next.
Well, my situation was a little complicated because I had a spouse who did not want me to leave medicine, and
Ooh,
I knew I needed to leave medicine because somewhere in the back of my mind I thought the stress was going to kill me, and I don't think I was wrong. I looked 20 years ago, I looked a lot older than I do now. So if that is
mm,
telling you something,
right,
I have pictures and I go, God, how did I look like this?
right,
And so there was one inherent problem there, and he wasn't going to be supportive. And anyway, that marriage wasn't really going so well anyway, so I had
yeah,
to first leave that. And then I thought I'd figure out the rest later. Well, in 2020, COVID happened. My practice went from seeing, so many patients a week to seeing 10 patients a week. I had a staff of about, I don't know, 12, 14 people, I can't remember. I had to figure out what to do. And honestly, at that moment, I thought, I don't know. I mean, this is not the way I wanted to do this. I wanted to sell the practice, et cetera, et cetera. But maybe you just jump. Maybe you
mm,
just jump because I don't know. I had to resurrect whatever was happening, and I didn't have the energy. I didn't really have the energy to do that because, there was financial problems. There was this. I mean,
yeah,
all COVID happened, and I didn't really even know what to do. And I just said, you know what? Maybe this is the time to just go. And
yeah,
that's what I did. I sent notice to all the patients and did all the appropriate. I mean, there were so many. I remember there were a lot of steps you had to go through. I don't remember what they all were, but that
right.
took a lot of time and effort. So finally, I just did it. I left.
And
So
you just closed your doors.
I just closed
Uh,
my doors. Not the way I want. I mean, I built something great and it was
yeah,
generating a lot of income. It was successful. I could have definitely made money off of it, but how do you sell it when COVID happened?
right. So, and I know that closing down a practice is, as much work as sometimes building it as well as kind of just really closing it and closing all those boxes, and then closing your doors. And then what did you do next? Did you take time to yourself afterwards?
Not really, but
Like,
because
what were you gonna do next? Like, you closed your surgery
so I
practice,
had
your center.
already
Uh-huh.
in process was I was opening up another med spa. I had a med spa in my
Okay.
current practice. I was opening up another med spa. I had literally signed all the papers and everything to do that. And then,
Mhm.
we finally opened, but it was much later that year. But there were so many delays and obviously, supply chain issues, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I was going to do. So I already had that. So it made it a little easier for me to just leave, but not 100% because this
Okay.
was an unknown and that was a known.
Mhm. That's interesting. Okay, so you had kind of like a transition plan. And then are you still working on your med spa now?
Nope. Nope.
No? Okay.
It's funny because when that unfortunately that didn't do well because it was around COVID, it was off, it was just hard. And I made a difficult I mean, within that year I had to then close that. It was a very difficult year business wise. And up until then I'd always been very successful. So now I'm having an identity crisis around my own self about whether I'm really successful because now all my life my success has come from external validation. My parents
Mhm.
taught me that, then my career and the accolades and all of those things. All my success is coming from external validation. So the journey for me has been figuring out how to find that inside, regardless of what happens on the outside. I am me, and I'm going to be happy with who that is. So then I took some time off because I didn't know what to do and I was freaking out.
I love that. Yes, I'm always looking for that piece where you took time off because that's usually where the revelation happens. I was talking to my client the other day, and she's an OBGYN, she transitioned into a new role. And we were really talking about now that she has the space and time to really focus on herself, what is it, the vision that she has for the future? And she says, I don't really think about that. I don't have that. This is the first time I've really had or created created the space to do that. And I was telling my partner, I was like, I'm so busy designing my life. I'm like assuming, oh, like everybody has time to do this, like forgetting that when you're in the matrix, like you do not have this time. Like you don't even think about it. You're so focused on what it is or all this external validation and building and building and building that something has to collapse in order for you to really take time out to start to visualize for the future, unfortunately. Because I hear a lot of rhetoric of like, visualize the future, like what do you want to do next? Like create what's next. But we forget that people don't have the time and space to do that unless they're intentional about it, right? Um,
100%. And it's for
yeah.
me, it's been a journey of many, 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 many layers through that. And I've
Hmm.
gone deeper and deeper and deeper because you're right. We are trained as physicians to not even know what it looks like to have any space whatsoever. And, it's really not just a physician problem. Other people have the same, high performers have the same problem. But I just, I know as a physician that I've definitely felt it. And I'll be honest, I did not do anything because I was giving myself space. I did not do anything because I had no idea what to do.
Yeah. Right, right, right.
I
Which
don't
can
wanna
be
give
a
myself
blessing in disguise.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't wanna give
no.
myself too much credit. I had
Like
no idea
I'm
what to
gonna
do.
take time. No, it's like I have no idea what I'm gonna do next. So I definitely want to sit there for a second. When you mentioned that you were going through an identity crisis because all you've known is success, right? And now you're in a position where like you closed your practice, now you started a new business, that's not going as well. And so now you're in this place where you are struggling with your identity and who you're going to be next, or what does this failure mean for you, right? How do we release the pressure around success when it comes to us being successful in a certain season in our life? And then, when things are falling off or when things begin to change, how do we know it's time for us to evolve into something greater?
Just by the fact that something's changing, honestly. And
Okay.
I like to say it's the analogy that I like best, and this is describes probably how I've had to deal with the last several years of my life. If you go into the ocean, you have 2 choices. You're either gonna ride that wave or go under that wave, or it's gonna smack you in the face.
Mm,
I was always just getting smacked in the face because I
mm,
was not willing to go under.
that makes
Now
sense.
I see the wave and I'm like, I'm going under it. It's much more peaceful that way. And I don't get smacked in the face.
I love that perspective. So the fact that things are changing, like allow yourself to flow, ride the wave than rather combating it, right? And that's kind of like where a lot of high performers live is like they're on the defense and trying to fight this and fight this reality.
Because we fight
Whereas,
change.
yeah, because we fight change. So the fact that things are changing, just know that it is time to evolve. I love that and just ride the wave. I love
And
that. Okay.
try to see what it's trying to show you. Maybe there's a greater evolution of yourself that you didn't know. I mean, if I didn't leave medicine, I would have been in Florida, in
Mhm.
Jacksonville, Florida. I didn't want to be there anymore either. That was another issue. I
Mhm.
couldn't I live in California now in San Diego. I wouldn't have lived here.
Nice.
I wouldn't have met all the amazing people that I've met here. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I would never have started my podcast. I would not have finished my book. I wouldn't be starting my second book. I mean, there are things, if you look at the change, no, it doesn't look like what it did before, but sometimes it's actually a lot better. I
Mhm.
have created a life by design where I have the time to focus on my own vitality. That for me is number one. I will
Mhm.
focus on my self care first. Everything else happens later. And then I focus on my wealth building activities. I focus on how I make impact. And I make sure those stay about as good and balanced as they can. It can't be all things in all days, but I have 3 pillars of my business and they don't all get attention every day. No. But well, that's not true. The vitality for me always gets attention every day.
Mhm.
I always take care of my health and wellness first, emotional,
Absolutely.
physical, all of that.
Yes, and I would definitely wanna get into the difference between focusing on your health or what health is versus vitality. But when you said that you took time off because you didn't know what it is that you wanted to do next. I think that is a great connection to, this identity crisis is when things are changing and choosing to fold. What does that actually mean? And there's a lot of rhetoric around like build a plan or decide what's next. And it's all action based. But a lot of times it's, okay, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and surrender. What does that mean? Like, what does that look like for someone like that is so used to being on the go or planning out what's next?
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, I can tell you that. But one of the things I've noticed is that the quieter I get and the bit more busy I get just doing enjoying life and doing things, the answers just come to me. So I don't really have to go seeking them. And there's a great book if you haven't read it, Michael Singer's The Surrender Experiment.
Mhm.
And I read it once, I'm reading it again because I literally feel like I'm living it now, because things just serendipitously just happen, and I go, "Huh, that's really crazy. How did that just happen?" But when I'm forcing it or when I'm chasing it, nothing ever really happens the way I want, and I'm exhausted. So now what I do is I just don't really spend a lot of time forcing anything. I just think about things. I really pontificate a lot more than I actually have action items, and then I pontificate about a lot of things, and then all of a sudden I get a ping to actually do something. Then I do it. And
You
usually
know,
it's the right thing at the right time.
I love that. So, first and foremost, with the surrender experiment, what are you learning from that book? Because I think that will be helpful for people to understand what it means to release.
Yes. So I'll be honest, I read the book about 2 years ago and I just picked it up to reread it because I know the premise of the book. But I wanted to actually read it again now that I
Mhm,
can get into, because it came upon me one day that I'm kind of living out my own version of the surrender experiment.
mhm,
Basically, what he did in that book, he just wanted to create some small meditation community. That was what he wanted to do. And then that turned into another thing, and it turned to another thing, to another thing, and another thing. Bottom line is, he wound up being a CEO of $1 billion company. That wasn't ever in his plan. So, the premise of the book is when you surrender, life will give you things that you could have never imagined. And the day that it dawned on me is about 3 months ago. I had just moved to, an apartment in Little Italy, and I love that area. It just makes me feel like I'm in Italy, and
mhm,
it just it's fun, and I love walkability. I love walking everywhere, and the apartment flooded
mm,
massively. And then I thought I just moved about 6 months prior, and I liked the apartment a lot. It had great windows, it was a great location. And I thought to myself, so again, this is me not resisting the change. Okay, maybe it's going to be okay. Then it flooded again, and they weren't going to, they weren't taking up the floors, they weren't taking up the rugs in the hallway. And I said, I'm an ENT. I know what's happening here. Mold.
mhm,
No, thank you. I made the decision to leave. Well, serendipitously, the woman who leased me my other apartment had moved to a different apartment building, and I was thinking maybe I'll move to LA. I don't know. Maybe that'll be interesting. I don't know. I just didn't know what to do.
yeah,
So I'd literally come from dinner with a good friend of mine, and I was telling him, I said, I think I may just move to LA. He says, I don't want you to move to LA, but if you want to move to LA, I'll help you go look for an apartment. I said, okay, yeah, let's plan something. Maybe let's do that. She texted me that night because we were friendly, and she said, "How are you?" And she said, "I heard about the drama." She said, "Why don't you come look at this building?" I go
mhm,
look at the building. I get out of my lease. I always wanted to I wanted a view of the water. I mean, I was one day I'm going to have that. I don't know. I
mhm,
now have a view of the harbor, the ocean, the mountains, the city, and it was better than I could have imagined because in my mind, I'm just thinking I'd like to see the water. But now I see
mhm,
the water and so much more. So I
mhm,
think because of that, I started to realize wait, this is what he was talking about in the surrender
mhm.
experiment. Something you never imagined came to you so easily just because I didn't resist.
And I love that, and in the work that I do, we really move through the principles of understanding that there's certain desires that we've already put out in the universe, right? And sometimes we just don't remember them. They're just back in our subconscious. It almost feels like, it sounds like, okay, you're taking a step back to do nothing, which is actually more of like taking aligned action. Is like you're listening to different signs, you're moving with the flow, like you said. Like the ocean there's so much movement. So whereas somebody hears the word surrender, or I need to take time off, they may assume it's like, oh, take time off and do nothing. And that may not be as appealing to a high performer that's used to taking all of this action, when really it's just allowing yourself to release any expectation, setting back, listening to the signs, riding that wave, taking aligned action one step at a time, really focused on being in the present, and allowing things to unfold. And then you have those actualizations where you realize, like, wow, this is something that I actually wanted, like the view of the water. This is something that I wanted. This was a desire. And I believe these desires are already implemented in the universe. And when we take aligned action, those things will start to appear versus taking forced action where we're trying to to fight something that we're really meant to let go.
100%. I mean, I guess forced action in that case would have been maybe moving to LA and making everything
Yeah.
hard. But when something showed up that started to look easy, I always go to the path of least resistance. Here's the
Mm.
funny part. I looked at maybe 6, 7 apartments the day that she was showing me around, and I picked the one that I'm currently in now. Do you know I didn't even know there was a view of the water? I
Wow.
looked so fast that it was a wraparound balcony. I never even turned the corner. I was so stressed because I was, out of my apartment. I was staying in Airbnbs and I was just dislocated. I was moving around a lot and
Mhm.
I just felt a little frazzled. So I never even turned the corner. I just quickly looked, saw the city view, and I was like, oh, this is great. And I didn't
Mhm.
really even know what I just like, oh, yeah, this is really pretty. I like all the windows and it's bright and that's all I moved in and then I saw it. I said, oh my
Wow.
God.
What a surprise.
So you didn't know that? I said, "No, I just this is the first time I've seen it."
That's amazing. I love that. Okay, beautiful. So, so you were able to kind of just really surrender, right? And start to ride this wave. And tell me how you began to realize that. I mean, assuming this is some part of your own calling, to really start helping people uh, begin their journey to life by design.
So this was something that came up actually through multiple things that didn't feel aligned. So I naturally went through some things that I felt were aligned in the beginning. So it didn't just
Hmm.
wasn't like miraculously I showed up here
Right.
and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I'm
Yeah.
going to do. No,
Right.
it happened through a bunch of different things. And I took some contract jobs. I mean, thank God my worst case scenario is I'm still a doctor and I could still do telemedicine. Luckily that opened up after
Hmm.
COVID. So I was able to do things like that to keep myself afloat and make money. It wasn't really exactly what I wanted to do, but it paid the bills, thank God.
Right.
And then I was, I tried different things. I was speaking. I didn't love speaking on other people's platforms because they put every speaking engagement had its own little box, and I always speak outside of the box. So that was
Yeah.
a little tough for me. But I did it because I wanted to get more experience speaking. So I spoke a lot. I did all that. I got a lot of experience. But then I really knew what my message was. So, I stopped taking a lot of those opportunities, even though I could have gotten them. It just didn't feel as aligned for me. So stepped back from that, did some coaching, that was nice for a while, but it started to feel like seeing patients again. And maybe it wasn't the right kind of coaching, I thought. So I was first empowering women and, that felt aligned. Then it didn't. Then I did a lot of aesthetic consulting because I had a med spa. So I know all the ins and outs of that.
Hmm.
That didn't really wind up being as satisfying as I had hoped. So I did that for quite a while. And I don't know. Aesthetic providers don't really invest in themselves all that much. Even though there's a way not to go through all the same struggles, they don't. I don't know. They think they just
Hmm.
sort of practice and they know how to do everything. And I did it for 25 years. So that was a little frustrating.
Hmm.
So I just found that I didn't really enjoy it that much. And that's when I stepped back and I said, I maybe just need to figure out what I want to do. And in the meanwhile, I was accumulating some things that I just decided to do whatever interested me.
Hmm.
Whatever those things are, it doesn't matter. They don't have to make sense.
Right.
So I enjoy seeing patients when it comes to vitality. I love talking to them about fitness and vitality and weight loss and hormones. And so I enjoyed all that. So I found a little place and I was like, oh, I really like that. Okay. Then also love biohacking. So I started to collect some tools around vitality that I thought were really important, things that I use, things that I believe in. Then I went and got my financial certification and got licensed in California because I think that most people, most high achievers and high earners, they don't know how to make their money work for them. Luckily, I learned that a long time ago. I just wanted to make it official. So that's why I went and got that. And of course, I learned a lot too. I didn't really know everything. I also wanted to be able to help these professionals with life insurance because people think life insurance is just for when you die, and that's not the truth. There are a lot of investment vehicles in life insurance. There's tax strategy people don't know about.
Hmm.
Many people have businesses that are not even in a trust. People don't have a trust.
Hmm.
Just all these things that I saw and that people need to know about. And I wanted to Really, I think I just went at it to learn about it. And then I just thought, this is stuff people need to know. And then in the impact category, that's, mostly obviously my podcast. I love being on people's podcasts. I wrote one book, I'm writing another book. I love speaking. So, that's how I see my impact. But, and I also was coaching people in this for a while, and I don't know, that didn't really feel right. I do consult with people about that. I can help them set up all their things when it comes to the vitality, if they have certain concerns and all that. So I do it, but I have to say I'm not only looking for coaching clients to coach. I can't
Right.
see that that's me. And would say at this point, I feel like how I would describe myself as a thought leader. So that's where I decided that although I like coaching aligned clients, I don't want to coach anybody and everybody because that's not wasn't enjoyable to me. So that's why I started creating the private community inside of school
Mm,
because I was doing my podcast anyway, but my podcast is called Gloves Off, and I as uncensored as I wanted to be, it's out there everywhere on social media, and even my guests, we knew we couldn't really get into the deep conversations. So now what I started to do is 15 or so minutes of the podcast is an introduction. That'll be everywhere on social media. The rest of the podcast is in my private community.
love
That
it.
way, it's private. We can now really truly be uncensored. So I'm building that community. I only started it about a month ago. And I really think that's it for me. I just know it. So I've been putting, my resources into that more, less on social media. And
I love
actually,
that.
I had my VA scale back on my social media. I mean, it's there. I mean, it's not, we do it, but that's not my, they own that. I mean,
Yeah.
my school community is mine,
Yeah.
so.
And the one thing you said is you just know it. So a lot of times people are like, okay, like how do I know? Because I love the fact that you really tried all of these different things, especially when you're just, allowing yourself to kind of move through the flow. A lot of things that we do that come easy to us. Obviously, we have to pay the bills. You want to try different things. There's this exploration phase, right? And so I
Mhm.
love that you were, speaking and coaching and facilitating and training and things of that nature but you realized that you really wanted to hone in onto vitality. And then ultimately you felt like because there's a lot of times where we love something, but we may not love the way that we're doing it. So sometimes the function just has to change, right? You may, love, helping people with vitality, but maybe you don't necessarily want to speak under somebody else's platform. Maybe you want to, like you're doing, you want to be able to speak uncensored. You really want to give all that raw information and you want to do it in an intimate community where people feel safe.
Right.
So you may love to do something, but also it's about figuring out how you want to do it, right?
Yes.
And what feels right. And so when you said, I know it, I just know it, then that's something that lights you up. And that's how you know this is what you ultimately want to focus on. And so when we talk about your connection with vitality, tell us like what is the difference? What is vitality? And what is the difference between focusing on your health and wellness and then focusing on your vitality specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question and one I love answering. So I've always been healthy, I guess, for the most part. I mean, my labs were good and things were good, but I didn't really have vitality. And I can see it in pictures from 10 years ago, 15 years ago. There was that light in my eyes wasn't even there. Vitality is that life force, that je ne sais quoi that some people have and other people don't have it. Some people just look like they're just muddling through life and not really present, not really alive. It's that aliveness that people who meet you go, wow, what are you doing? Are you like, what is it? And that's it. It's the vitality. I didn't have it. I didn't have it till just maybe a few years ago. I started getting it back little by little by little. I don't know if I ever had it because I was so oppressed by my family and I always had to do what everybody told me to do. I started getting it back when I started to be able to make decisions for my own life about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to live it. And then it started to come back. So vitality is that joy of living. So many of us, so this is something that I love fitness. I mean, I'm a fitness freak. You will catch me. I was on a cruise and they asked me if I was a professional athlete because they'd seen me in the gym more times than anybody else.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. I just love working out. I don't hate it. I love it. So, but it's not just about that. You will also see me eating a big old delicious slice of cake and ice
Mhm.
cream. That's because that's a joy in life. I'm not saying overdo it, but within reason. So if my body says rest, I do that. If my body says go work out, I mean, most days I work out. I mean, may look like a different workout. I love martial arts and I am I love to spar and I love to lift weights and I love all that stuff. But it's that excitement about it too, is the vitality. It's not the same when you're like, I'm gonna go work out.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I get to go work out. I love it. I got punched in the rib in Muay Thai, and I couldn't work out for a week, and I mean, I didn't, but I could not wait till I could work out, and when I started lifting weights again, I was like, "Thank God." I'm a nut, but what I'm saying is but I wouldn't have felt that way before. When you have this peace and this vitality, you want to do those things.
What has to be true in your life in order for you to reach vitality or have vitality?
You have to have space. You
Okay.
cannot do it without space. If it's forced, because right there, if you are forced and rushed in every minute of your life, that workout doesn't feel joyful. You gotta now, it's a thing you gotta do. Oh my God, I gotta pick up the kids, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, and then I gotta run over there, and then I gotta do that, and then I gotta go get groceries. Now that doesn't feel joyful. But my life has been created so that that workout now feels like a very joyful part of my day.
So would you say the first step is trying to be intentional about creating that space? And how
Yes.
would one go about it, or what's the experience you've seen with the people that you support?
It's a loaded question because everybody has different things that they have to get past, but I would say the overarching theme is most people are so fixated on money that their idea of a better life is to work more and make more money. Where in fact, it actually quite could be the opposite. Work less. Figure out how to strategize your money better. Make that money work for you. See what's going on. Look at your budget a little more. Maybe get offload some major expenses that maybe you don't need. I do that regularly. I've created a situation where if I don't need it, I make sure I'm not paying for it. And that creates space so I don't have to get into that rut of, oh, everybody thinks money solves all their problems. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't. I made a lot of money as an ear, nose, and throat surgeon, a lot. And I did not have any problems, I promise you.
Mhm.
I have less problems now.
Okay. So you had a lot of problems is what you mean. Like you
I
had
had a lot of problems. I
yeah.
mean, a lot. I didn't know how, I didn't have the space, I didn't have the time, I didn't have anything. So I just was in the hamster wheel going through the motions. What space creates is the ability to look at the structures of your life, the foundations, see what's working, see what's not working, fix a little bit, change a little bit. But you have to have space to be able to do that.
Mhm.
I,
Yeah.
it's
And
important.
yeah, definitely. I love that. It definitely makes sense, and that actually connects to what we were talking about, surrendering and allowing things to flow. And that's part of the releasing process is to figure out how you can begin to create the space. And I always say if you don't figure it out, then the universe is going to shift and then you're going to be forced to figure it out sometimes as well. So, it's take those events and experiences in your life where these major changes are happening to begin to start creating that space so that you can move into more vitality. Now, one thing that you did mention was life force energy. And I was like, as soon as you said that, I was like, whoa, because that's something that I've been fixated on for the last month. I don't know where it came from. Might have been a download, not sure. But I've been very obsessed with as things begin to change in my season about what I want to really expend my life force energy on. What do I want my life force energy to go into moving forward? That is so important to me now that I've had all of this experience, this beautiful transition, working with my clients. Now that I'm going into a new space, what is it? I'm so obsessed. I don't want to spend my life force energy into something that is not going to be impactful. And so I know and I've learned how valuable it is. And I think that it's really important for us to stress how valuable, like, first of all, what does life force energy mean to you? And for us to really talk about how valuable that is for people. And that's so sacred and we really need to be protective of it.
Yes, I agree with you. But I will just modify what you said a little bit about life
Okay.
force energy being about impact. I think it's
Okay.
about joy.
Joy.
When you
Okay.
shift it to joy, that's what everything is focused on. It might sound selfish to other people, but I just focus on my own joy every day. And do you know what? The greater my joy, the greater the impact I can give back to the world. in every single way, the ways that you don't think possible. Because we all think impact is just this big thing. I'm going to leave a legacy behind. I'm going to make massive waves. But what about impact being how you talk to a stranger, a
Mhm.
smile, how you pet a dog, how you smile
Mhm.
at a child, how you have a conversation with a stranger, how you maybe, drop off some food for homeless people and they don't know that you did it, and like all of those things.
So
All of
are
those
you
things are
saying
impact.
that life force energy should be more about what it is you're going to create space to give back to yourself versus back to others?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's kind of the reframe, that's the switch.
Because guess what? The minute you start doing that, you have so much energy to give back to others. If
In
you
a way,
deplete
that's
yourself,
creating space in a way as well. Yeah.
I have so much life force energy to give to other people. So I had very I see this in my own life because I had very different kinds of relationships when I was in a different place in my own journey. Meaning that relationships could feel a little transactional. If somebody would just I would be impatient with people. But now I'm not that way anymore. I have the space. If somebody does something, I give them the benefit of the doubt. I ask them, I may talk to them because I'm not just, overwhelmed with my own life. So now the relationships I'm cultivating, the impact I'm making, like I said, even just day to day impact, little things that you see are just have been transformed. And
That's
we
it. You
we have it wrong. Just pour into everybody else and deplete ourselves. Well, then you've exhausted the well, and the well is
yeah.
dry. The well is dry. But if you keep pouring into yourself, the what you can give to other people, I can tell you because I've started to live that way because it took me a long time to decondition myself from the that selfish and blah blah blah. Oh, I just focus on my own joy every day. I wake up in the
Mm,
morning, I focus on my joy, then I work, and then I usually finish work around 2 or 3. Then it's all about my joy again.
I
But in
love
that
that.
joy, it's not like I'm just a glutton and I'm just, doing silly, but in that joy, when a stranger talks to me, somebody talks to me in the elevator, I am joyful to them. And
Mhm.
guess what? That energy is contagious. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they had
Mhm.
something terrible happen, but maybe talking to me because I was happy made them feel better. I've been told that when people talk to me, they say, "God, your energy is very calming." Well, great, that's impact.
Mhm. Right,
That's impact.
exactly. That
It doesn't
exactly.
have to be this big thing. I mean, yes, I want it to be a big thing eventually, but until it gets to there, until it gets to that, I can do a lot of small things that create impact.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that reframe. So tell me about your podcast and then also your community. So what is the your podcast about? What do you reveal in those first 15 minutes? And then what are some of the uncensored topics that you get into when you are talking when your gloves are off?
Exactly. The gloves off started because it was it was a double entendre. I took my surgical gloves off and also a martial arts innuendo because I love martial arts. I have a black belt in Krav Maga. I do Muay Thai boxing and probably will start jujitsu. I just love it all. So that's how it started. And I've always had conversations about people who have changed their life in some way, gone through some big change or some revelation, some moments. So those are the conversations that I've had in the past. I've only done one episode this way and I have a bunch more scheduled. And this is the other thing. I don't put pressure on myself to produce X amount of podcasts a
I
month. I
love
was
that.
really putting a lot of pressure on myself. And I thought that dilutes what I'm producing. I just, now I'm going to do maybe 1, 2 episodes a month, but they're going to be quality. So, the first one I did was with a publicist, and we talked about authority versus, just notoriety. And
Mhm.
you talk a lot about authority, so you probably know where that's going. And he wasn't able to say a lot of those things. He said he wouldn't have said them, except if it was
Mm.
in my private community. The next one is going to be with a mental health professional. He's a nurse practitioner. He created a AI bot, so we're going to be talking about how to know when to use AI for mental health versus to really see a
That's
coach
very
or a
interesting.
therapist. So that conversation will be behind in the community. I have so many topics I can't wait to get into about vitality, nutrition, because so many people. most of us, we're going to have this PC version of us that shows up on social media to some degree. Even though I really wanted to go gloves off, I knew even I was censoring myself. So now
Mm,
we're going to have the real conversations, and I can't wait. I want to actually do something on relationships too. I think
mhm,
that's going to be in there eventually. I have a lot of ideas. I've been just really spending that time where I've been a little quiet and not doing so many podcasts, thinking about where I want this to go. I'm also interviewing a founder of a medical device company who, and I want to talk to him about what success might have cost him. Based on the
mhm,
four burners theory, you can't have all burners going at the same time. So I have
right.
quite a few guests, and then some startups, in the vitality space. So I have quite a few great guests lined up. So I'm excited about this.
I love that, and if you feel comfortable, I'm curious, when it comes to vitality, what is something that you would have put in your uncensored community that you can share with us today
Yes.
here?
Well, I believe a lot in supplementation and nutrition. And I've been a supplement junkie probably for about 20 years. So I've evaluated so many different companies, so many different supplements. But I think this one thing is really cool because we can actually measure it. We can actually measure our antioxidant scores and see how well we're doing in the antioxidant carotenoid category, because that's what protects us from free radicals. It helps us in so many ways. That's part of my own routine. So I tend not to talk about anything that I don't do or believe in. And I have a bunch of different things that I do. I mean, there's people always ask me how I manage my time so effectively. I'm going to be sharing a lot of secrets about the things that I probably were, the things that I would teach my coaching clients, but
Uh-huh.
I want it more on that platform. And again, I want to be in a position where everybody can access it. I've
Yeah.
always loved that. I've loved that about the media because I don't it's not one on one. Give everybody the information.
Yes. Oh my god. Media, that's one of the things that I'm really focused on moving forward because I see the expansion,
Yeah.
surrounding it. So it sounds like it's not more because, like, when you said uncensored, I was like, "Are we gonna get into, like, what supplements are like or, like,
Oh, I'll be
no,
talking about that. I'll be
okay." I'm
talking
like,
about
"Is it gonna get, like, real like, things that you would
yeah,
never
yeah,
put
yeah.
on your
No,
online platform?"
I'll be
Okay.
completely unfiltered. Most people
Okay.
don't know the completely unfiltered version of me. I
Okay.
mean, I get pretty unfiltered on gloves off. This is gonna
Okay.
be a whole another level.
Okay, so
It'll
you're
be
gonna get
like
down to the nitty-gritty versus, things that you possibly wouldn't say on an online platform, but really getting into the depth of some of the information. And then also some valuable resources, it sounds like, and tools that you can really help specifically in an intimate environment. So it seems like a little bit of both.
yes, yes. And like I said, I want to talk more about the wealth, aspects of things, giving people way more information on that to my private community. So eventually I'm going to start building out courses. So I have a lot of big plans for that. So, but we got to start somewhere. I'm not going to put the cart before the horse. I'm just
Yeah.
right now working on just getting more subscribers and everything and just building a community. I have value in there already that's completely free. And then there'll
Mhm.
be other things that are obviously paid, So just slowly but surely, but I'm happy about it. The other thing I love that about the place I am now used to be that I used to always like had to feel so successful. Now I feel no shame in just saying I just started the community. We have 25 followers so far, but I only started it a few weeks ago. I'm happy with that. But the
Yeah,
old
I
me
love
would
that.
not have been happy with that. The old me would have said, there's only 25 followers, only 25
Mm.
subscribers. Who cares?
And that's that external validation, right?
Yeah.
Rather than focusing on the work that you're actually being called to do. And I love that part of the journey of creator calling is for us to really kind of assess our journey and look back and uncover a few things. And you said that when you were younger, you were, in a way oppressed by your family and you went into medicine because you felt pressured by your dad. Did you have another dream um of what
Business.
you wanted to do? Business. Okay.
I I wanted to run a Fortune 500 company. I mean, I don't know if that's really what I would have wanted to do, but I would have
Uh-huh.
pursued business. And I think that's not really untrue because I went into practice
Yeah.
on my own. I started that business. I started the med spa. I've started many other businesses. So I think that that is really true to my heart. I think if I wasn't in practice for myself, I never would have survived in business. I'm in medicine for so many years
Mm,
because then I would have worked for somebody, and I don't know that that was right for me.
right, right. Absolutely.
So somehow
Awesome.
I was able to change what I was doing and put it in that container so it satisfied all the things at the time. So
Awesome. Okay. So yeah, I think that this was so valuable. I think the biggest takeaway for me is really kind of the surrendering aspect. I think that a lot of times when we have these major shifts and we do go into these spaces where we intentionally or by force have to take time out. I know a lot of people are suffering with the notion of like, what do I do next? And feeling the need to really kind of be forced into a plan or next steps.
Mhm.
And as a high performer myself, I'm the same exact way. I'm like, what's next? I'm a future focused individual as well. So I'm working on being in the present and really allowing life to flow. And so when we're making these transitions, really taking time out and realizing that it's not that you're not doing anything, it's that you're like Dr. Sundar said, you're going with the wave, you're flowing, you're taking that aligned action, and then you're letting your life uncover the way that it needs to, so that you are creating that space to move into vitality. So the work that you're doing is so impactful. It's something that I have not come across yet. So this is a very unique experience as well. I've heard of, designing your own life. I've heard of human design, but the way that you're describing, bringing joy back into your life and not only focusing on your health and wellness, but really your vitality and your joy. And when we talk about impact, pouring into ourselves in return to making that impact is something that is definitely life changing. So thank you so much, Dr. Sundar. I really appreciate it. I think what you're doing is amazing, and I can't wait to
You.
check out your community. So let everybody know where we can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on drkalpanasundar.com. That's my website. Actually, I don't even have my school community on there yet, but I think you can actually. Is there a way you could put a link? Because I could send
Yeah,
it to you. And you could.
absolutely. Yeah,
I'll,
I
I'll
can
do
do.
that because that'll be the link to join the school community as well as my website.
Mhm.
I'll send you all those links, and that way it might just be easier. First of all, my name's hard to spell and everything, and if I say it, they won't remember it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to have all of her information in the description below so you can check it out. And then that's it. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for listening in. This is the Recalibrated Vision podcast, and I want you guys to always and forever stay free. I'll see you next time.